because as a Cypriot, I'm always probably officers in this.
So this is the cross-examination.
So I have a request. Please keep your. I know that you have a lot to say, and as I know, I have been sitting with meetings before. Instead of asking questions, people like to sometimes make private presentations. So please, no private presentations, just questions, short questions, because we can learn a lot from both Meltem and Achilleas, who came all the way from Cyprus for us. So, and then we will close with the concluding remarks of Constantine. Okay, yeah. And then, so we can have time later as well. I mean, if you would like to say more, I mean, to speak more, then there's going to be a kind of gathering after this meeting to answer questions. But now only short questions. So I open the floor. I also have one short question, but I will ask it maybe later. So here, if you can say, I mean, I just, maybe have a benefit from my position. Where is Turkey in all this?
Well, we're trying to make contact,
Yeah.
and the ET is calling. We're not getting an answer. So if there's one thing that this meeting here today can convey, is that yes, where is Turkey? I would very much like to know. Because this is not a Turkey bashing exercise. This is not war. This is peace. We have ceasefire, we want to make peace. And I am proposing, in addition to what Meltem very wisely said, I am giving you a technical approach into how you can solve this. And just imagine if my imaginary ping pong scenario actually works. Imagine if we do this, because it is not unrealistic. And of course Turkey has to come in, and of course there's politics involved, and I'm not going to go through the Cyprus problem, I don't think it's the time for that. But yes, this is the other side, because this analysis is done on the leaders level, who have to agree on the terms of reference. But there's also an international level, which one has to deal with the UN General Assembly. So in the UN General Assembly, as a matter of fact, one has to deal on a state level. And this is unrelated to the non-solution of the Cyprus problem. So this is an accommodate all type of solution. You deal with it on leaders level, on community level. You deal with it on both sides of the green line, and you respect the need to change the laws on both sides of the green line, evidence law being the point. And then you take it one step up and you deal with it at the Council of Europe, where states have to deal with it. And then perhaps you take it to the UN, and the UN has to deal with it. And the EU is there as well. And there is this triangular relationship that doesn't seem to work very well, which is the UN, the EU, and the Council of Europe. These three huge organizations don't seem to be in coordination, if I may say so. And each one has its own importance. Think of it as a triangle where each side is equal. And you can put the UN on top if you want to look at it from a political point of view. You can turn it round and you can put the Council of Europe on top if you want to look at it from the legal point of view. Then you can turn it round again and you can put the EU on top if you want to look at it from a financial point of view. But it is still a triangle, and each side is equal to the others. The question is, can we get them round the same triangular table? So I hope the long answer was good enough.
Does Meltem have an answer to that question as well? Where is that?
Well, the question, if it's about Achilleas' proposal, then Achilleas replied it. For my proposal, which is more like, as Achilleas said, a transitional justice as a parallel stage, and I am also not against, like Mr. Tatar, to your proposal. I don't object, I'm not against, and I will support it, but I say that until the time comes that the official authorities and the leaderships would make it, we should not stop and just passively wait. We need to involve the citizens because we are paying the prices. It's our life. When they, for example, in 2004, that the half of the Cyprus became EU member, and the other, I mean, the Turkish Cypriots, the EU acquis, they told us the EU acquis is suspended in the north. We felt that our rights also suspended until the time comes. And so it was like, it's not our fault, we said yes, but the acquis suspended there. So similarly in Crans-Montana as well, we felt more or less the same. And now the Turkish Cypriot leadership and Turkey is not very helpful, but they rely on this lack of trust that appeared among Turkish Cypriots. They say that it was more the Greek Cypriots. They don't want this federation, or they don't want this and that, and etc. And so they depend on this sense of urgency for Turkish Cypriot community to have a comprehensive settlement and overshadow every other aspects for reconciliation, which would support finding a solution. So I am here and I am supporting just because I think that it would support a solution of the Cyprus problem, to find a settlement, because I really believe that this continuation of the status quo would make partition permanent. If it's not already too late, maybe it's already happened. And if it's already happened, still we need to, as citizens, come together. And about the Turkey role again, both of us are part of and members of the Greek-Turkish Forum as well. So maybe the civic society from Turkey and from Greece as well should be there. So imagine that the demand comes from the people, not only from Achilleas, or not only from Meltem, or not only this organization or that organization, but we imagine that we prove that it would work. Ordinary people, they came together, they shared stories, and nobody died, nobody attacked another. That's why I wanted to share my story, because it was the Orgagi's son. They came together with my father with respect, and after this sharing stories, I can say that even this feeling of acknowledgement was stronger than before in there. Yeah.
Thank you for that. They're very good suggestions, and it's very happily. But if Turkey is not willing to have it to the deal, I don't see any way we can facilitate it. Maybe we can try, and we try. But if Turkey is not willing to come and participate and don't give us information, how
For
we
this
proceed?
truth and reconciliation, is that?
Okay, let's take a few. All these, I think you all have questions here. Let's take all the questions in this row. Yes.
Achilleas started by saying the CMP has done an excellent job, only half of the job. Is any of what we discussed tonight will help them to achieve a bit more than that?
Hi, Achilleas. I have quite a few questions for you, if I may. The first one is, usually this type of model of a truth commission, is it true that it's post-settlement rather than before settlement, and therefore we look forward to the negotiations, hopefully that will commence. You mentioned the 1990 immunity in operation. How many people have actually come forward since then? My next question is, there are 754 Greek Cypriots and also Turkish Cypriots, 197 still missing. Could you tell me, do we have a breakdown of how many are civilians and how many have been killed by who were in the army? next question is there obviously will be a state responsible for the murders or killings of Greek Cypriots, Turkish Cypriots, and he puts it in the pot. Do we believe that the majority of ours who have been killed by the military, the state of Turkey will admit, and we're going to give them immunity? Why do you think that people will come forward if you do have the truth commission? Those are some, but I have some more.
We can come back to this. Let's do the question and then we go to the answer.
Yeah, I found your presentations really interesting and positive, and I commend you for your efforts, and I support your efforts. But I'm concerned that there's a lack of contact between the communities, as far as I understand. And raising these sort of issues, what steps should you take to prevent them from making things worse? Because inevitably you're going to be raising sensitivities, talking about specific cases, basically Greek citizens, Turkish citizens killing each other. That could actually make the atmosphere on the island worse and actually undermine any political process or any other process. So what steps should you take to ensure that truth actually does bring hope and doesn't make blame more of an issue?
I've got a list here. I'll start with that list. This is, okay. Turkey has to play. That was a simple question. Yeah, of course. If this doesn't, if Turkey is not engaged, this will not happen. Turkey will engage inevitably, because March 4 to 6 in the Committee of Ministers, this thing will come up, and Turkey will have a choice: continue to avoid this or deal with it. And we're trying to raise awareness. We're trying to push politically and legally for this to be part of the negotiating process. Of course, it's difficult. And that's why it didn't happen for 50, 60 years. But what if Turkey decides to play? Are we ready to do everything else? Because what I found is that on both sides, they will pick a point which is fundamental, and they will say, unless this happens, we're not proceeding. So as a lawyer involved in conflict resolution, the way you deal with these things is you say, fine, let me understand your issue. Your issue is this, right? Put this aside for a second. Have you agreed on everything else? Because you will find that a lot of people have not even thought about agreeing for everything else in the safety of raising this big issue, which they well know that it will not be answered, and therefore they feel comfortable in their little world by defending their position on this major issue. Well, the trick is very simple. Isolate the issue, put it aside, and deal with everything else. Because if I turn your argument upside down, you really haven't given me any other argument for not doing this other than Turkey not playing. So fine, I will take that. Because essentially, your position is fantastic. Because if Turkey plays, you have no other argument. And that's what we have to think. And this kind of thinking is of course important, and this is a very simple trick that you do in negotiations, so it's not really anything clever. But it's something that we have to engage with. Now, how can the CMP achieve more, was the third question. I don't know. But if you look at the results, it's not going very well. So we really have to do something, and there are two choices. You do something, or you don't. If you don't do anything, as a matter of fact, the actors will die, and the people who are interested will inevitably die. And the worst case scenario is the Spanish example of the Civil War. And you look at the valley of the disappeared, where your great-grandfather has now been exhumed, and he has been given to, I don't know, 2-3 generations down the road. And of course, he's a democratic hero, and fine, but, you know, so what? I still want the spouse to be told. I still want the children to know. The parents, if not all, most of them have gone. And it's so unfair to have these dead people. We owe it to these people to give an answer, and we owe it to the wives or spouses or whatever we have. Mostly women were left behind, men disappear. We owe it
It's
to
important to tell them how it happened as well.
well, that is
This is
exactly
very, very important.
that is exactly the point, and that's where there is a difference, at least in my understanding, but people who understand more of this can tell you. I see a very big difference between the 1,051 that have been identified and the remaining. The 1,051 that have been identified, the anxiety of the family has in a way been dealt with because they know, as a matter of fact, that these are the remains and we will go and do our religious duties as one's religion, whatever religion you are, dictate. They have finished, and so there is some closure. They now want to know how they died, and my understanding of this is that most of the families want to know if their loved ones suffered. I think that's the biggest single question. How did this come about? Did they suffer? Not so much to say, oh, how bad was the guy or the persons who did it, but because they have an inner need to feel what their loved one went through in order to be able to bring a closure to their own tragedy. So that's the first category, and the answer to the first category is in the files of the CMP. And it's sitting there, and they're not giving it out because it's confidential. I'm sorry, I don't buy it. And that's the first step of the Truth Commission. Now, the other category, the remaining 970, whatever the number is, are in a different category because they're hostages of the situation. They feel that if you rock the boat, then their chances of finding the remains will be jeopardized. So don't rock the boat because somebody who would have told you that their loved one is in in whatever place, will not come out and you will not find them. They are more difficult because their situation is worse. But we have to deal with it, and we are old enough to be able to understand that this is a hard world, we're up there, but we really have to give a solution. Of course, the do-nothing option is always an option, and then we shall all depart and have this Spanish setup. Meltem, you better do something here, because I'm going through the questions, but you better chip in a little bit.
Okay, just
So I've got the list, and I'll say something, and then you
yes,
say
and you are
something
a
as well.
lawyer, and I'm not.
No, but I don't.
And
You're better off.
You are one of the best,
Ah.
the only one. So what
So
can I
let's-
do?
yeah.
Look at me. At least I'm sitting close to you and try my best.
You're doing
Okay.
better than me.
Ah,
You are
really?
human. I am not.
Yes, this is my power. Okay, I have genius. Okay, here I want to highlight not only the proposal of truth and reconciliation, or not only the Committee of Missing Persons. Almost all other bicommunal technical committees and everything, they don't work. And the both sides' argument is that whatever the suggestion or proposal is, they say that after the settlement, when we say, for example, let's compare both sides' curricula, let's try to draft a joint textbook, let's do something educational, supplementary materials, they say that after the settlement. So this is important. Without political rapprochement or settlement, whether it is two states or federation or whatever, but without a political agreement, it's so difficult to do anything that would work in a genuine and the proper way. But when it comes to what to do in the meantime, because we don't have this settlement, like when you say that you want your property, they say you after the settlement. If you want property, then you should solve the Cyprus problem. You want this after the Cyprus problem. You want that after the Cyprus solution of the Cyprus problem. About in the meantime, what we can do, and this is the reason that I support Achilleas' proposal because establishing a separate, independent, autonomous Truth and Reconciliation Committee sounds like a mission impossible. It's after the solution that we are going to do. But he says that upgrading the committee of the missing persons, so practically he makes it possible. It still
Not impossible.
Not impossible. It's possible, but still it requires political willingness. It's like what Mr. Guterres said it for Transmontana. Remember, I would like to remind you, he said that in fact the deal was there, 90% or 95 or 99%. There is this reconciliation and the convergences on everything, except his Guterres framework, 5 of 6 outstanding issues that should be deal, is there, but what is lacking is political willingness, he says, and we are still there. And we should bear in mind that our problem is political. What was the problem in 1963?
Stay there.
If I
Don't go
You
there.
see,
Let the question be.
just let's ask them questions and they will
Yeah.
finish.
No, I'll turn now to the to Theo's question. There were 5 or 6 that I put down. The first one is this process a post-settlement matter? A Truth and Reconciliation Commission is normally a post-settlement. What I am suggesting to you is only a Truth Commission, and I am very careful in doing that, because my reply to this argument is that in the Annan Plan there was a Truth and Reconciliation Commission. Now we won't get into that story because that's not a very nice one, but I am advocating a Truth Commission. Why? Because I can reply to Theo that reconciliation would start once we sign the deal. And if we don't sign the deal, then that does not mean that truth should suffer. Reconciliation will suffer, but the truth should not, because the people involved in truth, the people depending on truth will not be around to see the reconciliation, because the Cyprus problem will not have been solved. So the reply to that is pretty technical. Yes, I understand that truth and reconciliation is something that happens afterwards. My proposition is let's do truth and start with it, and let's do something, because there is a need for it. Let me turn to your other questions. I'll try to write it down. Yeah, what are the details? I don't know all the details, primarily because it's a confidential file. But yes, of course, there are civilians and there are military involved, and there are details, and there is responsibility. I mean, in 1963, if a Turkish Cypriot disappeared, somebody has to pick up the price tag for it. And it is the Republic of Cyprus. I am so sorry to say this, because they were the country in charge.
And
Now,
it was the
some
Minister
people,
of Interior.
yeah, some people may like it, some people may not like it, but that's just a legal fact. And the more we don't talk about it, the more we don't solve the problem. Now, the more we talk about it, perhaps there is a possibility to solve it. So in terms of responsibility, even though legally speaking, only the Republic of Cyprus has brought an action against Turkey, and the action was only in relation to the Greek Cypriots, we still have the Turkish Cypriots, for which there's no accountability. And that's why in my proposal I suggested that ex gratia, that's the legal term of saying that without admitting liability, so as not to get into all the politics of it, the Cyprus government comes out and says, we will offer that. But just imagine if part of this we can introduce what the Australians already have, and have a sorry day for a change. Acknowledge that, people got killed because they're not around. And you acknowledge it without specifically admitting that Achilleas did it. But somebody did it, and it wasn't ET. So we really have to engage with this. Now, again, because I want to be careful, I know this is part of reconciliation, but I'm not calling it that so as to have a reply to your point. Now, state responsibility and immunity. Of course there is state responsibility. We have the state responsibility of Turkey, and we have the state responsibility of the Republic of Cyprus. Of course, for the one there is a case, and of course for the other one there isn't. Now, the immunity point, which was there, in 1990, I think I was in Cyprus actually, I had returned from my studies. I didn't know that the deal was struck, and that the two attorney generals had actually given immunity without asking anybody. I mean, I challenge you to tell me that you knew about it and you did not object. It is now news to you that in 1990, the two attorney generals came up with the letters. I showed the letter from the one side, and they actually cut a deal. I was not asked, you were not asked, it landed. We're now 2025, it's 35 years later, we're going to discuss immunity that both sides have given. Is it now the time?
Constitutionally valid?
It's, how can I put it? Let me give you a legal answer. It's not invalid in that it has been operating for 35 years. So that's...
So why hasn't the CPM or anyone else brought this to fruition and promoted it? Therefore, you don't need the truth commission if you've got that in place already.
Yeah, well, these are very rhetorical questions. I mean, I've got very abrupt answers to them, but I won't give them, because I won't spoil the good climate we're having here. But I'm trying in a, how can I put it, in a neutral and civilized way to answer questions that sometimes are very sensitive from one side or the other. Will people come forward? Well, the first question is, are there people alive to come forward? That's the first question. Second question is, assuming they are alive, will they come forward? I don't have an answer to that. But if the answer is no, then game over. Because we will never find them unless somebody digs up and has a grave and they give the remains back. So a lot of these questions, I don't have real answers, and it's basically the position of the do-nothing option. Let's keep the do-nothing. Now, there is lack of contact. Of course there's lack of contact. That's why we're not getting the problem solved. If we try and solve it, will this be if we try to set up the Truth Commission, will the truth be a reason to have some sort of problems generated, and will this create a revolution and destroy the Cyprus problem prospects? Well, are there prospects for solving the Cyprus problem? That's question one. Assuming there are, will this exercise destroy them? I don't think so. My usual reply is that the best argument for not going forward because something bad may happen is that don't rock the boat argument. That's the best argument I can give you. Well, I can assure you the boat is sinking. And this is a Titanic scenario. The orchestra is playing and the boat is going down. So you have to make a choice. And all these things are neither black or white. They're all gray. And you have to take a view, and you have to balance what is the lesser wrong in this situation. And I don't have answers. I just have a proposition, and this proposition may or may not work. But I think it's better than doing nothing. My proposition is, the more you talk, the less you kill. So if we have less killing and more talking, maybe, just about maybe, we can pull this off. But then again,
Your question has been answered?
oh, with all this I didn't answer. Well, have another go.
More or less. Better than doing nothing is the answer.
Yes, well, I mean, that's the dilemma is that.
To go around for another round.
You better help me on this.
He asked what can be done by the civil, the communities to come and.
You need more contact between the communities, even economic, commercial contact, social contact, environmental cooperation. It's just not happening.
I would add on this, I would even confess, because just bringing people together is never sufficient. And this is a mistake, because if the problem is political, or whatever the problem is, you should address to it. It's like that you bring the kids together, they play, they eat, they dance, whatever, or the youngsters, or the adults, or we come together. We don't have any problem in enjoying our Cypriot food, or drinking a cup of coffee together, etc., laughing, telling stories. But if we don't address to the real issues, and we return back to our respective homes, guess what? The problem is there. And this was the mistake that the civic society, from the opening of the crossings onwards, they did. They were like, let's not touch the sensitive issues. Let's not touch the hot potatoes. Let's not touch the controversial issues. And what to do? Let's do something else together. Let's do something together. And what happened, even my kids, when I ask them, why don't you come to this bi-communal event, etc., they are asking me, why should we come? I said, you will meet with the Greek Cypriots. And they said that they don't have such a problem of meeting with Greek Cypriots. Whenever they want, they can meet. But for what? So what I am telling about the citizens' assembly is to bring people to address and to talk about the real issues, whatever it is, etc. Yeah, exactly.
Especially the youngsters on both sides, because are visiting the occupied area and our people to the free area, and the youngsters, when you talk to them, don't know anything about it. This is what we have to address, to educate the youngsters. Otherwise, we will continue like this.
Okay, we need to address the questions that have been asked online, so let's go there and then we'll come back to the...
There are some excellent questions from the public in Cyprus, broadcasted also in Cyprus, so they're sending their congratulations to both of you for the presentations tonight. So the first question is, when we're looking at conflict resolution, we come up with some suggestions, creative ideas we call them. But the next exercise is, where do you see the obstacles? What are the main obstacles? What are the stumbling blocks in establishing such a truth commission? Has there been any precedent in the Council of Europe before that we can draw on? Or is Cyprus the first in line? Harris Southeast has put some data that we collected together in public opinion surveys. So those are available because we asked for many years now what people think about truth commissions. One of the findings is that there is a steady increase of support in the Greek Cypriot community, but on the Turkish Cypriot communities there is no clear picture. There is actually a decline of the people who are indifferent, and they were not responding to our questions, and those who are against are increasing, but also those who are in favor are increasing. So I was wondering if there is any interpretation of that, and how does it need to be framed in a Turkish Cypriot context in order to have a similar level of support as with the Greek Cypriots. Harris also is asking, Harris Southeast, how would that be linked to a referendum campaign? So, and I think that goes back to your question. It happens before the settlement, builds trust. Should we expect that it's also going to facilitate a positive vote in the referendum, so we don't see a repetition of what happened in 2004?
So, yeah, let's try to also give a bit shorter answers, because there are some questions coming
And
from
there
this
is
young,
one in the
yes, this young generation as well, so we would like to give voice to them as well. So let's, okay, if we can, concise answers,
Yeah,
so we
sure.
can have time, because
Well,
we are running
the
out.
answer is, have there been examples? There's over 40 truth commissions set up in the world, and you can look at that. The bibliography is there. How can we address it? I really don't know. I don't know my area of expertise. But I can tell you that my logic tells me that if we can pull this off, it will obviously facilitate a solution. But others are more specialized than me to analyze it. That was short.
Okay, super. Exactly what the chair wants.
Okay, shortly maybe I would reflect on Paris Southeast, but can you repeat what is among the Turkish Cypriots?
So, with the Greek Cypriots, we see a steady increase of supporters.
What, for what?
For the Truth Commission.
Truth Commission.
So we have specific questions on Truth Commission. Would you like to see a Truth Commission in this happens if there is perpetrators? We have the same questions for the Turkish Cypriots. We see increase of both those who support it and those who reject it. What is declining is the number of people who have been indifferent, because we give the no response. So there are two camps in the Turkish Cypriot community. One that is in favor and one that is against, and both seem to be competing with each other and increasing their support. So I was wondering what we have done wrong in terms of framing the idea. So we haven't seen only the ones who are in favor increasing.
My personal interpretation is that it needs to be communicated, because how they understand when you say Truth Commission matters. That it's not, this is the first time, as Achilleas said, that we are together and we are discussing the matter. So it is very important to define the concepts and what we understand with all the other scenarios and options, and then ask the question maybe. If directly you ask them, what do you think, do you support truth and reconciliation, what is it? Even here, Achilleas says that it's not truth and reconciliation, it's only truth. It's under these missing persons. Maybe some would understand that it would, if you combine the missing persons committee with this idea, maybe they think that it would ruin the missing persons committee as well. Or reverse, they think that missing persons committee does not work well. So what's the point to add another element, such as sensitive element, to this committee, which is in fact, it's not independent, it's under the two leaderships, or their influence is very strong, that we know.
Okay, now we turn to the young people. When we started to work on the Cyprus problem, we were also young ones. We spent our youth on the Cyprus problem. Now it's your turn. Okay, let's hear you. Yes, Emel.
Yes, thank you both. Having South Africa and Colombia in mind, I'm wondering what's your opinion on the socioeconomic opportunities of transitional justice, the transformative aspect of it, and whether that can help maybe materialize the convergence and maybe lead more easily to a political agreement in Cyprus, as it might even resonate more with us, the younger generation of Cypriots. So it's
Thank you. I don't see any point in differentiating older and younger opinions, but still thank you for your presentation. I found that the most interesting and strong attribute is that you combine bottom-to-up approaches with a citizen assembly that focus on peace and reconciliation, but at the same time more top-to-down approaches which are more technocratic, which I found really interesting in terms of diplomacy and really successful. But my question is, what comes after? Like, I imagine in a few days you're going to be back in Cyprus. What are your plans? Are you focusing on doing something like this at a much larger scale with political parties, with NGOs, with civic democratic organizations in Cyprus, and focusing on meeting with parties or maybe, I don't know, the president or anybody from the government? Because I do believe personally that there's potential in this, and I would like to see it flourishing, but I would like to understand, where are you targeting with it? What is your priority, the top-down approach or the bottom-to-up?
I have two kind of questions. One is, I'm very skeptic usually in everything, but like as someone who wants to see the Cyprus solution in his lifetime, isn't like working on establishing a truth commission redundant? Because it's, I know that missing persons is a huge issue in Cyprus, but for those who have more the chance of seeing a solution in their lifetime, how much, I mean, because you have to, like, as in your outline, you said that you have to go to the United Nations to amend the resolution. So it's just adding one more thing to the agenda before the solution, because as you said, the Truth Commission is for before the solution. So you would only adding one more thing to the agenda that needs to be agreed. And as you said before that, in your argument, saying that if we want to agree on something, do you agree in this, what, like you said, do you agree in this one thing, and then before agreeing to everything else, like, would this be something that it would be in the solution agenda that you would have to agree? Well, you wouldn't have to agree, but it would add to the solution. My second question is, in your last outline of the steps of setting up, you said since your solution can put all sides without actually each side recognizing each other officially. And I know that the monetary aspects have to be discussed with Turkey, because Turkey would be paying the amount. But when the Republic of Cyprus government would be paying the amount to Turkey, I think wouldn't it be important to actually not officially recognize, since you don't have to recognize it in this case, but add that it's actually you're paying the money to the de facto representation of the Turkish Cypriots, which is the Turkish Republic of Northern Cyprus, because then you would have the legality issues. I know it's not a legal case, but you would have the legality issues between Turkey and the Turkish Republic of Northern Cyprus as well.
Thank you very much. I'm additional member of the House of now London. Thank you very much, both of you, and everyone today, for both two excellent and very different presentations. My question is this: I've been personally involved in the Cyprus issue for decades, and also would love to see a solution in my lifetime. This is very interesting now that we move forward, but and I support it. I think it's really good. However, wearing my politician hat and my real policy hat, I've lived through the Northern Ireland problem in this country, how difficult opposing sides came together. And in order for any progress to be made and peace to come together, there's always had to be incentives. And in this one, I know that people involved, they're incentivizing for them. Obviously, they want to advance if they want closure, and of course they do. But for the wider communities, is there an incentive enough? Is there enough incentive to make this happen? And we need buy-in from the communities, from all the communities, as someone has just said. The political parties, all of them need buy-in. But you also need, obviously, Turkey has been mentioned, but also from the EU. Now, I have colleagues who sit on the Council of Europe. I would love to say to them, this will be coming up. Please engage with it. But, is the EU, the wider EU, have they bought into this? Because I know for a fact Turkey, Turkey and Erdogan is wanting to get closer to the EU, work better with the EU, for other reasons and trade reasons, of course. These are all incentives. And I think in order to succeed in this, it has to be not just confidence building measures, but social and economic issues as well brought to bear. I just think in isolation, with the best will in the world, and let's be honest, unless there's something in it for different partners, it's not going to happen. Much as we would love it to happen, but I think we need to think a little bit more strategically. I'm not saying we haven't, but there needs to be more strategic thinking about how we engage these very important three triangles we're talking about. The UN has always been, nothing is agreed to, everything is agreed, and that's where the stumbling blocks is. So the UN can probably agree to it, but the other partners need to agree to it as well, and they need to support it.
Okay, you have half a minute each.
Okay.
But we can answer those questions actually later, right?
During reception, yeah.
There's a reception later, so you can, please, pursue these people.
Thank you very much. I agree, in fact, 100%, and also your intervention, both of you, in there, and it reflects maybe more from the Cypriot perspective. I don't know. We can reflect on the other side, and it's an answer to Haris Salti's question about the results. Why don't we put our energy and efforts in, for the solution of the Cyprus problem? And if this is the one that would be an incentive, that we should define clearly its role in a more wider, wider picture in there, in order to make people to say, yes, let's support this because it would be an important or crucial element. Otherwise, it's not that I am saying, but otherwise, it's like that we normalized and accepted about the division, and we legitimized it, and we are dealing with some sideline, which I'm not for minimizing, because I strongly believe that even for those who are against a settlement or solution would be interested in finding the burial places of the missing. Even the hardliners had missing persons, so they understand each other. So it's a potentially that they could support the idea, but we need more about it, about the lobbying and putting it in the wider framework.
Contrary to the skepticism that has been expressed, I'm extremely optimistic. You are my optimism. Your questions are optimism. Because the fact that you are here with your questions means that I have engaged. It actually means that you have engaged. The fact that you talk about my triangle is maybe 75% of my presentation, because you understand what I said. And the triangle will turn around depending on who calls the shots. So if you want political, you call the UN. If you want legal, you call the Council of Europe. If you want money, you go to the EU. And you turn it around, and it's equally important. But let me throw the ball back to you, and we can discuss this. What have you done in politics to get the triangle moving around? Because that's really the question. Get these three characters around a table, and try and work it out, because that's it. But I am very optimistic on this skeptical question, because you are engaging. And of course not everybody will agree, and of course most people will be skeptical. But I just have one question for the gentleman at the far end about the money.
Second question.
Yeah, about the money and the recognition issue. There is the following beauty in the details of the award made in the interstate application. That money is not for the Republic of Cyprus. The money awarded by the court against Turkey is for the people. So the people are the families of the missing, and the people are the enclave. Now, how the Cyprus government will divide this is a very big story, how that will work out. But on the same rationale, the Republic of Cyprus will not give the money to the administration. They will give it to the people. And actually, most of those people, if they go back in '63, are Cypriot nationals anyway. So we may reach the point that we actually put this together, and people will argue who distributes the money, which will be quite interesting to see, because but that would have meant that we have overcome skepticism, and we have reached the point where we're arguing about how to divide the money, which is a huge leap from the state we are now. And the other thing which I want to put in is that there is a time frame for this exercise. This is not something that will go on forever. We have March 4 to 6, where the Committee of Ministers is meeting. So yes, the Parliamentary Assembly should be put on notice. Yes, the UN should be put on notice. Yes, the EU should be put on notice. But please, don't put on me the burden of going and talking to all of these people. You have all now. No. I'm using. I'm putting it to the extreme to make the point. But you have all been infected with this idea now, and I expect you, in exchange of us coming from Cyprus and giving you this story, to go ahead and spread the word. And of course, a lot of you will be against it, and of course, a lot of you will be skeptical. But we have at least achieved the position where we are making you think about something which you had not thought about before 5 o'clock this afternoon. And that, I think, is not bad.
But we still have one. We need to give the floor. We can maybe continue the discussion in the section. We need to give the floor to Constantine, please, for the concluding remarks, and then we will.
We also have a second event tomorrow at 5 o'clock in the Cyprus Community Center. So if we still have space, if anybody wants to join, just let me know.
Property. There's another issue.
Another one.
Yeah.
Tomorrow it will be about safe.
I'm here to say thank you to you and to Achilleas and Emel and Neophytos for organising this great event. As a student, ladies and gentlemen, of the Cyprus problem, and like many of you, we've had a little too long to study this problem. I've noticed how good we are at finding problems with every proposal. And there are reasons for that, and that is that this is difficult stuff. It's very difficult stuff, and there are risks in every direction. But the people that are going to help us find the solutions are the ones that persevere, notwithstanding those problems. And so I congratulate Meltem and Achilleas for their proposals and for making those proposals together for us this evening. I think that they are, Achilleas' idea is profoundly important. I think the way in which Meltem brought it to life so vividly and personally is profoundly important at different levels. The first level is the Cypriot level, a solution to the Cyprus problem. Those two words in juxtaposition, Cyprus and problem. It has been a problem almost my entire life. There's a saying, I'm told, in international diplomatic circles, Cyprus is the place that diplomacy goes to die, which is very sad for us. There are two questions I pose about that. The first is, how can there be a solution without an element of transitional justice? The second question, how can we achieve that solution with comfort for those that are looking for the truth, without dispensing the kind of punishment that makes the solution less likely? It seems to me that the answer to those questions may well lead us to a truth commission, either before, during, or after a solution to be debated. Your answers are very compelling in that respect, but to be debated, but certainly as part of an overall comprehensive solution. That's the first level of importance, the Cypriot level. The second level of importance takes us beyond Cyprus. And so we look at the idea of truth commissions as a possible remedy at the level of international human rights law. The Cyprus Fourth Interstate gives us a concrete example. 2001, a finding of breach against Turkey for its failure to investigate what happened to the missing people. Claim brought by Cyprus, and so it was focused very much on the breach Cypriot missing people, but it would apply in the same way to any missing person. 2014, a decision of the ECHR to award just compensation against Turkey for those breaches. And those of you who know the European Convention of Human Rights will know that the Committee of Ministers has a role in supervising those judgments. Well, in March of this year, just a few weeks' time, this will be before the Committee of Ministers, and I think it is very interesting to to imagine the idea of a truth commission to be added as a possible remedy for this kind of case. Not just for Cyprus, not just for the Cyprus problem, but perhaps for Cyprus as a source of solutions as well for other interstate applications, Azerbaijan, Georgia, and Ukraine. That is the second level, at which I think this is very important. But the third level is the simplest and perhaps the most important, so I come back to our introductory remarks from Meltem, and that is the human level. 2,000 reduced to 1,000. Not a statistic, but 1,000 stories, as Meltem has told us. And let's think of those stories not as academics or lawyers or those who are here as politicians, but as human beings, as brothers and sisters, wives and husbands, children. I would say parents, but I understand that there are no parents left of the missing people. So for them it is too late. Most people want to know, and to my mind that is the strongest answer to the question that was posed, should we wait until after the solution? For those people, that is no answer. And those people have relatives, so I would not underestimate the significance of those people to the feeling towards a solution, amongst others, on both sides of the Green Line. And so to my mind, this is a profoundly important proposal. I'm delighted that you brought it to our attention. I'm delighted that the discussion has begun. I hope it continues. I hope some of the people in this room will help it to continue, and it therefore remains for me to invite you all to join me in thanking Achilleas and Meltem, and Emel, and Neophytos, Emel for hosting us here at my alma mater, by the way, as a King's London graduate, and to Neophytos, who's a good friend, and who I can say is an extraordinary innovator for peace in a variety of different ways. And to each and every one of you, ladies and gentlemen, for being here this evening and helping to make this an event, which I think we all hope may be the start of something. Thank you very much.
Please join us for the reception. It's downstairs at level 0.